Welcome everyone. How did I get this? No, I did not buy it from a store. It was made from a guy named Nate Summers. Nate, some of you will know because Nate won his episode of Forged in Fire. So we came to Wasatch Forge today. We hung out. We got a knife making demo. So stay tuned. We'll show you how we made this bad boy. Okay, so give us before we start jumping into me losing my mind watching knives be made, give me who the hell is Nate Summers? Give me that thing, yeah.
All right, well, I am Nate Summers. For those who don't know, I am a full-time bladesmith. I've been bladesmithing for 23 years.
So you started when you were
10.
I was gonna say 12, but you're actually pretty close.
Very, very close. I'm 33. I've officially done it since I was 10, and I say that because I've made things my entire life. Everything most kids do, they craft little things, but
no,
distinctly,
not like knives. I was damming up creeks and building forts.
Yeah. I wanted to cut. I wanted to use a knife. I'd read stories about people using knives, making fire with knives, and just carving and crafting. But of course, I didn't have any of my own, and so where my history takes the leap from to a knife maker is when I had flattened the table leg with the hammer. I'd sharpened it with the file to the point where I could actually cut some rope.
A table leg? Is that what you said?
A table leg, yes, like a hollow tube, just like a hollow tube of steel. I used a claw hammer on the garage concrete steps. That was my anvil. And I just smashed it flat until I had a bar, and then we had a file, which is like an old mill bastard file, and I just sat there and I just scraped on it as best I could figure the file works. I didn't have anybody teaching me how to use it.
Yep.
I just touch it to the metal and just watch what happened.
And this is also pre YouTube tutorials, and
this would have been in '96.
Yeah, so this is when you really have no resources because now I could go onto YouTube and figure out how to make a knife. It'll be shitty, I'm sure. But,
this is at the time there. I didn't have. I don't think we had internet.
It was right around that time. It was getting close, but nothing.
Well,
impressive.
the first things I could find on the internet about bladesmithing or blacksmithing for that general was a single article with one picture on it.
Yeah.
Of a guy hitting a piece of red metal.
Yep.
That's about all I had to work with. I had a few things, books in the school library, where they just talked a little bit about what the blacksmith's job was and the kind his importance in the role of the community. That's about all. But the technical information on blacksmithing I didn't have until I got that was what I was working with. It was just curiosity and observation alone.
Sure.
And as soon as I was able to make something that actually did the thing. It did the thing that the knife does that actually cut. Yep. There was the aha moment. I could actually do that. It wasn't fantasy. It wasn't pretend. I wasn't making a toy that I was playing around imagining something was real. It's I made something real.
Yeah, when you were 10.
Yeah, when I was 10. I've been trying for a while.
That's crazy.
I wish I could say it was the first knife I made. It's not. The other one I made out of a Coke can, but it fell apart.
God, a guy like you would be a nightmare in prison. You would open up some sort of shank shop, and you'd be charging
I'd be rich with cigarettes. Yes.
Oh yeah. And I've been watching. I don't know if you've ever seen the show 60 Days In. It's like people voluntarily go to prison.
I've heard of it.
The show's fantastic, and you realize how different fights are than how you think fights are. I mean, it's literally it just turns horrible, and it never goes anywhere. But man, you would be the man. You'd be running Nate's Shank Shop.
Yeah,
that's your prison. Shop. That's your prison knife store.
That's a badass tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't bad. It ain't bad. Yep.
So
you're 10, you pound out your first blade.
And after that, the next biggest leap was in applying heat to it, because that was good and fun. I mean, I was also using a pair of pliers to clip the point into just trash. One man's trash was another man's treasure. I'd find stuff on the roadside. Sometimes it'd be a broken spring. And it's the first time I learned how to apply heat to it was just a barbecue pit. And I just put something in there and I'd watch till it glowed red. But the thing that still stands out in my mind is that was the first time I was able to experience that by heating the metal, it softens up and you can control it more. And it was years of playing with it that way asking, getting a hammer for Christmas or getting like a little 15-pound anvil for Christmas because I would ask for this stuff. Because I'm weird. But it wasn't until my aunt and my uncle bought me a book called The Art of Blacksmithing by Alex, I think it's Alex Beeler. It was a book from like the late 1960s, early 70s, right around that era. But that guy actually wrote down, it's like, here is blacksmithing technique. This is what his job was. This is how he did all these things. And then everything just blew up from there. That was my first real like surge of information on it and guidance with it was just that book.
So you really didn't have I'm sure at some point you wound up having a mentor, but
for about 5 years, from about 10 to 15, it was me, my backyard, and this book that I could use and I still that time frame is important to me. It's very important to me because still a lot of the things I first observed about like what this is, I observed when I was that age. And I didn't have a mentor. I just had me and my imagination, and I still value a lot of those very, very early lessons. The next biggest leap that everything took for me is when I did get a mentor, and that was Jared Williams.
For those who don't know, Jared was on the show a few months ago.
Yeah, Jared.
Except we weren't in a position to be able to, actually work on knives.
Unfortunately, we got to get him down.
Yeah, we'll do something.
Yeah, you'll be. I love working with Jared. Jared. So when I was 15 is when I first met him, and I think he is. I think he's 15, 16 years older than me. He is as old now then as I am now.
Okay. So he was 30s when you were starting to. Yeah,
he was
mentor.
30s, and he was gracious enough to invite me over to his garage, and his garage to me was like this place is to me now. It's like he had every single tool under the sun. It's like it blew my mind. I was working with trash. I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
I only want to get for like allowances and stuff
you're
like
15,
that. So I'm working on nothing. I go there and he's got everything. And so and he had made everything. And he made all this kind of stuff. He had swords. He had knives. He had stuff from fantasy. He had stuff from history. And he had the knowledge too. He knew how all of it worked. It absolutely blew my mind that somebody could have taken it that much, that far. And he was totally free giving with his knowledge. He's like, yeah, this is how you do this. Watch.
Which is cool because a lot of industries, it's like I'm very good at this thing, and I need to protect it. I don't want anyone to know about this. It's cool to see, especially crafts like that, where someone's actually willing to say, "Hey, look, I'll take you under my wing and let's rock and roll."
I think the greatest service that some of these people can do is that they are willing to give. They are willing to give it away for free. They said that what they do is a gift.
Yeah.
And they treat it as such.
Well, and there's something cool to me, it's like, look, as technology progresses, right, and more things will get automated, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like 3D printing or this or that or whatever the thing is we're talking about. So much is going to be automated with, look, cars, they're built by robots.
Yeah.
Look, and that was the case years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I've toured different German car companies overseas. I've been in their plants, and dude, that shit's built by robots. So it's cool to see something where it's like knives could be automated. We could have these things, just pumped out. But it's cool to see in an industry like that. It's like there are people who still say, look, this is a sacred craft. And like, we take this thing seriously, and it's art. I lump you guys more into the category of artists to me. I consider,
Well, so if I may propose the idea that I think proper retirement, once something retires from utility use, it retires to artistic use.
Sure.
Is that because everything we have to do, we got to form follows function. We got to take care of our utility things before we can take care of our artistic things. If we don't do that, we don't have time for artistic things.
Right.
If we didn't make sure a long time ago that we made sure our crops were in or that we were well fed, we're not going to party afterwards and practice playing the fiddle or practice doing whatever it is that now we have leisure time, we can do this with it. And I think that the better we got at utility, the more we have time to just how good at this can we be? We have those pass fails. Like, you have knives, they serve their purpose, and now, it turns out, my neighbors and me is like you have to be really good at cutting wood. So let's have a competition, just for fun, because we have extra time and we can. And so then it just becomes all about that competition, all that competition, or all the interest in it gets developed, and then it gets so good that we don't need it we don't need it for utility anymore. But we still loved it for those reasons. We still enjoy it. We still have good memories about all that. We still got so much from it. So it gets this honorary position as like a revered thing, as a craft, as an art.
Oh yeah.
Good examples are, like, why do we still go fishing?
Sure. Right.
Food's a good place to start. Like, why do
hunting, fishing, period.
Hunting, fishing is like, well, it's if there wasn't some kind of very deep and intrinsic appeal there, I don't see why anybody would still do it.
It's hard work.
It's hard work.
You're usually going to fail.
Yeah. It's hard work. Yeah, it ends up spending. I'll spend $20 to get a fish, and we're talking like a small, like 8-inch trout. That's like half of a meal.
Sure.
Yeah, I could go spend $2 and get a Big Mac, and it's like I will get fed that way. But I enjoy fishing. I love fishing. I love the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I love how much attention it captures. It's healthy for my mind that way. Like if I need to focus, I can go do something like that,
Yep.
and it reminds me, it pulls me away from.
Well, 100%. Like I shoot. That would be like, my thing. Where when I moved here from California, obviously being a gun guy in California doesn't really, it's not really a culture that embraces people that like to shoot. And
Right.
I was telling my friends, I'm like, look, what you fail to see about this is like. You could equate this to making knives or whatever, but it's like what you see is like something that's violent or negative or whatever. And it's like, for me, it's therapy. Yeah. Because when I'm doing that activity, I can't think about anything else. Because I might shoot myself or someone else. I might screw up and it has very dire consequences. It's like, well, look, you're playing with whatever 2,000 degrees here and stuff that can cut your damn finger off. It's like, well, you better be focused.
Yeah, right.
So it takes away some of life's stresses, and they can come back later. But it's like, for the moment, this is where I'm at, and I'm 100% present with it.
Yeah, very well said. As there's something about I'd go on to say that like that is the utility behind aesthetics. Mm-hmm. That is the value of beauty. If it's like. If you watch a person who sees something they truly think is beautiful, and how much it totally engrosses them, it captures their mind. It may make them feel a good way, a bad way.
Sure.
It's a combination of feelings. Maybe they may not be able to explain it. It's just what it does for them, what it does to their mind.
Yeah. Music's the same way. Can take you in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. What utility was music?
I mean, it doesn't accomplish
it doesn't put food on the table.
No, it's not a survival thing. It's just someone getting to have their experience of someone else's art, and it's cool. And that's what I think is cool about this stuff.
Yeah, so with, I think the question from there is some people, how in the world could that apply to like the knives? Like what could be like beautiful about them? And that's the craft is where it begins.
Oh, yeah.
I said, like, I love knives because I love knives because I love what knives make. I like to cook. I love craft. I love woodworking. So some of the stuff I used to do when I was a kid, just with like a pocket knife, is I'd sit and whittle for hours. I made puppets. I made boats.
Oh, I mean, shit. I mean, you can damn near name any thing you can possibly think of. Anyone in construction, like, geez, that's a giant industry.
Painting uses knives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Everybody uses knives. Machinists,
I have no need for a knife, and there's a knife on me.
Yeah.
And it's not purpose driven beyond it's a last resort self-defense tool for me. It's like.
There is, and that's just with the use of the knives, not including the making of the knives. The making of the knives is same thing. It's multidisciplinary. I get to engage in woodworking. I get to engage in in forging. I get to use and everything involved in that I enjoy. I also get to engage in machinists' tools. Maybe it's just the way my mind works about it, is I try to link as many things as I possibly can, even if they don't seem to be related. Because I find that no matter what I do, it ends up affecting the final product. The skill I got from, basic information on welding actually helped me with grinding. Yeah, they would have first talked about posting. It's like if you're doing stick welding, you need to be able to control your hands so you can control exactly how fast you're feeding that wire into your weld. It's like, well, with grinding, it's the same type of thing. Freehand grinding is a totally separate type of skill than using jigs and using machines.
And when you're talking about freehand grinding, you're talking about getting an edge?
Freehand grinding, and I'll demonstrate this a little bit later, is if I'm using a knife, and the industry standard right now for knife making is 2x72-inch grinders. Which is have right over there. And it's just like a big belt sander.
Yep.
That's running, and you use that to abrade away metal and to shape it. You're just to sculpt it, basically. We use that after you do the forging because the forging is more efficient. You can move metal quicker than you can grind it away, but it's like a raw piece of lumber at the end. It's still got like the tree bark on it, and it's unevens, pock marks, and all that kind of stuff.
When it's coming out of the forge?
Yes, and you need to grind all of that away in order to get clean, even surfaces.
So the purpose of the forge is just to create what shape? Basically to get your raw, like, okay, we got the shape, now we need to perfect it?
Yes. Forging is the initial action. Can you just get things to its approximate shape? It also sets the stage. It also sets the stage for a good heat treat, which is considered to be the most. Heat treat is considered to be the most important thing about steel working.
Okay.
Without a good heat treat, you really only have a polished piece of metal. You don't have a good knife.
Right. Yeah. Because it can basically just break, right?
Right. Order of operation with knives goes from forging to heat treating to grinding to polishing, and then you worry about your handle and you worry about your sheath.
So something like this, and I'm digging this piece. That is.
Oh, it's nice, isn't it?
That's a really, really nice piece.
We just tested that yesterday, by the way. It tested quite well. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So how do you test it?
We did 3 tests this particular time. We did what's called a brass rod edge flex, and then we did a 2x4 chop, and then we did a free hanging rope slice. So the purpose of each one of those is you first of all, no one test will rule out all the variables. There's no perfect test that, like, I know for sure this knife performs exactly the way it's supposed to all the time, every time. Every single one kind of has a shortcoming, so you have to balance it with other tests. In this case, the brass rod.
It's like it's almost like it has to go through like a decathlon, because it's like, well, one event's just tested power, or it teaches us something about endurance, or whatever.
It can clearly do this part, but you need a variety. Yeah. Strength is a variety of things. It's not just one thing. I'll demonstrate that later, hopefully, if we have some time.
Cool.
With steel. It is a combination of stuff. You need just the right amount of hardness. You need just the right amount of toughness. Heat treat. That's all about the heat treat. That's all about the way that the blade is shaped. That's all about the way the handle is shaped.
So there's a degree to which, like, you've got to understand some math in terms of like geometry and what holds up. And
this is not everything about this particular craft. The common perception of it is that it's all grunt. Right. Is that it's just about just an excuse to swing hammers and hit something. It's like this is 100% a balancing act. There is stuff that is contrary in design that has to be. You got to be right, dead center. If you're too far to the left, if you're too far to the right, it's not going to work. Yeah, as an example of that, the edge has to be thin, but if it's too thin, it's going to roll or it's going to chip. If it's too thick, it's not going to cut.
Right.
Yeah. This is with forging. I can swing a hammer. Yeah, and it's not about hitting it as hard as you possibly can. You're trying to shape it correctly. And if you don't do that in the right order, if you do it too much or too little, it's not going to work. The point is, can I get all of these things to happen? And they're very different. They're very different requirements. Be like asking somebody, it's like, okay, can you lift 400 pounds? Good. Now, can you run 5 miles while carrying it? It's like, well, no. That's a specialized thing. That's just for doing the one kind of skill. We need this person to be able to lift a certain amount of weight, lift a certain amount of gear, and be able to carry it a certain amount of distance as a standard.
Yep.
So where does that balance lie? Testing. That's why testing is so important. We'll be able to say, okay, we have this dialed in just enough that it survived this test, it survived this test, and it survived this test.
Yep.
The brass rod edge flex, if we get into details here, is where I'm taking a brass rod, and what I'm doing is I'm actually flexing that edge over it like a playing card. And then I roll it all the way down on this side, and flip it over, and roll it down all the way down that side. What I'm doing is I'm watching that steel bend around that rod, and I'm going to know two things. I'm going to know
when it's hot or no?
No, when the knife is done. And one of two things are going to happen after enough passes. It's either going to chip because it's brittle, or it's going to bend and stay bent. And so I'll know, like, okay, so like, what do I got? If it's brittle, I'll know I probably need to re-temper the knife. I'll need to take it out. I'll need to take some of the hardness out of it and soften it just a little bit more.
So you don't have to trash the knife.
No.
You still are working with the same knife. You've
Yes.
just got to redo some stuff.
There's just something else. There's something else about it that needs to be fixed.
So do you hit a failure point pretty often where you're like,
Oh
yeah,
we
got to redo this?
I will intentionally put a failure point in there if I need to know more about the steel. Something that can be done with bladesmithing is recycling old steel and making it into knives. And I love doing that. Some people spit on it because they think it makes inferior knives, and I'm not going to disagree. That's if the person doesn't value the scrap at all.
Sure.
And I think like what's going on right now culturally, I think we're learning to value that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like reclaimed wood and stuff like this is like shit. You pay a premium for that now.
Exactly. Can you turn something that has some history to it into something like a knife?
And that gets in a really cool territory.
I made one of my all-time favorite projects that took me 3 years to do. Was I made a katana and a wakizashi. That's a Japanese long sword and a short sword. They're usually worn in pairs. For this rancher out in southern Utah, and I made the swords entirely out of scrap from his ranch. So you're using bits of iron and then using bits of the hay baler blades because they have the chemistry in that steel is hard enough so that it will hold good edges. But I don't know exactly what the steel is. I have to use a procedure where I can test stuff and figure out what it can do before I kind of commit to it.
Sure.
So like when I say like I built in, I do it purposefully with that. My design is purposeful in that I have set myself up so it can undergo testing, and then the testing will tell me what else I need to do to it to make it to bring out the best in it.
Sure. Yeah.
Brass rod, that's just one of them. From the brass rod edge flex, I'll know if it's the number one thing I'm looking for with that one is if it's too brittle. Because if it's too brittle, that's easy fix. All I got to do is put it back in the oven for 5 degrees hotter for another hour, and then bring it back out, and then sharpen it up and test it again until that stops
Takes
happening.
a while for stuff to get.
Oh yeah, when people ask me how long it takes me to make a knife, is like that's a catch-22, because the actual amount of hours can be fairly low. It could take me as little as 8 hours to make a decent knife. I think I made this knife in about 8 hours, but it took me about 2 weeks because I have to because this is like, okay, it's only going to take me 20 minutes to do the forging on this, but then it needs to go through thermal cycling and stuff that's going to take all day.
Yep.
And I need to let it, it needs to rest. It needs to mature. With all of that.
Yeah. It's not like you can just say, well, I got from 9 to 5 today, and the knife will be done at about 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. I can. There's a spectrum of possibility, and certain things is like, okay, for this knife, I'm gonna need to do this 3 times to it. It's gonna take at least 3 days for the thermal cycling to be done, and then I can resume work on it. For this knife, I'm just making something that's really, really basic. It's like, okay, well, let's see what we can do in 2 hours.
Well, and that's almost the concept of forged in fire.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which again, for people who don't know, give us that tale a little bit.
So in 2017, I was on a show called Forged in Fire. I was season 4, episode 17. I made something called the Kapinga. If anybody cares to look that up, it was a great episode. I won. So I'm a Forge and Fire champion.
Dope.
That was the takeaway, is that no matter where I go, I get to use that as part of my. That's my credential.
Hell yeah! I mean and that's a big cult following of people who are into Forge and Fire.
It's being a Forge and Fire champion has helped me exponentially. I mean, I enjoyed every bit of being on that show. It was one of the best times I've ever had. I had excellent competition. We're still friends.
Cool.
And so I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I could make a knife in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, but that's what it is. So to some people, that's all they'll ever need.
I mean, hell, I'll use the shit out of that thing.
I kind of like it, actually. I haven't done this.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a good, all-purpose design, too. Mm-hmm. You can do a lot with that. That's shit. I say we just made a knife. I was a participant in the viewing.
You motivated its production.
Yeah. That's even cool how the top with the rounded edges, like you're saying.
It's better.
Yeah.
It is better. Everybody puts their thumb on the back of that knife.
Sure. And, inevitably your thumb's going to wind up there. So.
Well, it's like with tools, it's like there's the business end that's doing the action, and there's the end that you need to touch. It needs to be friendly to you.
Yeah, it needs to be somewhat pleasant for me to actually be able to handle.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's fucking wild, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Dude, this is cool as shit.
No problem. Yeah.
We just made a knife.
Let's see how it cuts real quick.
Yeah.
We got some rope right here.
Demo it.
Let's see here. No, I'll keep that. All I need is a little piece of wood. Like this. Because this edge is hard. I mean, I can scrape the steel with it, as you can see. It's just, it's still not good for it. So let's take a bit of rope here. Oh, you know what? Get some stuff right here.
Shit, yeah. Damn. It goes through it.
Oh yeah, cutting machine. That was really choke up here. There we go. Yeah, that's actually pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for many applications, as far as I'm concerned, that's about the size knife you want.
Right.
You know?
Larger than this is usually specialty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a.
Yeah.
It's a specialty.
That's
blade.
something, shit, you could have that as a carry, fixed blade.
The ability. The fact that it is something you can keep on you no matter where you're going is exactly that's what makes it versatile.
Mm-hmm.
It is an accessible tool
that you could have on you basically all the time if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Good for the outdoors. Good for basically anything.
Let me do this to it.
Done. I thought we were just gonna watch you heat some shit up, pound it real quick, and be like, "Oh, that's super awesome."
That's not the full experience. The full experience is from start to finish.
That's a knife. That's a knife. 100%. I gotta think of application of how I want to use
it. Use the hell out of it. Beat the hell out of it. See what you can get away with.
Yeah. 100%.
It's a guilt-free knife.
I know. This is a knife that, yeah, absolutely. So where can people get in touch, whether it's email, Instagram, website, whatever?
Email and Instagram are the same. It's all lowercase, one word, Nate the Blade Maker. Follow me on Instagram. Instagram's the best place to view what it is I do or to get a hold of me.
Cool. People want to just send you a DM on Instagram?
Send me a direct message or send me an email. Either way, that is the best way to contact me.
Done. Hey. You should contact him. He's the local guy, and he makes cool shit. So, right on. Thanks, brother.
Hey, thanks, Jake.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can always find us on YouTube. You can like, subscribe. Believe it or not, we actually look at comments and respond to them. So whether on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever platform you're on, we actually will respond when you leave us a comment. So please do that. If you're a podcaster, you can find us on iTunes, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And what the heck is the 1911 Syndicate? 1911 Syndicate is a different type of real estate company. I know sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, but yes, that's actually the business that we're in. I started it because I wanted to really work inside of the military, law enforcement, veteran, hunters, outdoorsmen, all of that space. So I started a brand that was a little bit unique. We're based out of Utah. So if you're ever in Utah or if you live in Utah and you got real estate questions, you can always hit us up. But regardless of where you live, we're building out a network of partners all across the U.S. So if you're in Dallas or Phoenix or wherever you might be, you can hit us up and we'll actually have some boots on the ground for you there. So again, thanks so much for tuning in and we'll see you soon.